Hi, my name is Andrei Jikh. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. Hope you're staying safe and healthy out there. And we've got some good news and we've got some bad news because just this past weekend, President Donald Trump signed 4 new executive orders into effect. And I'm just going to tell you them right away what they are in case you're short on time. You can watch the rest of this video to know more details and specifics. But the first executive order was a payroll tax cut for anybody earning less than $104,000 per year, but with a catch. The second executive order is that the president wants to defer eviction of home renters, but with a catch. The third executive order is that the unemployment benefit is going to go from $600 a week down to $400 a week, but with a catch. And the fourth executive order is student loan repayments are going to be deferred as well, but with a catch. So what's the catch? That's the catch, but there's a lot more details to know. That was cringy. Can't help myself, it's a nervous tick. So let's just break it all down. Let's rewind back to Friday, August 7th, when everybody thought that both sides of the political aisle would come together to some sort of an agreement to help out the American people with a second round of stimulus checks. Unfortunately, none of that ended up happening and negotiations just fell apart. That's because nobody could agree on what we should spend on the budget for the bill. The House-controlled Democrats wanted to spend $3.4 trillion, and the Senate-controlled Republicans wanted to spend just $1 trillion. So nobody wanted to back down and nothing productive happened on Friday. Cue President Donald Trump with his 4 executive orders. Now, an executive order is a power that is given to the president to go around Congress to make quick decisions. Now, normally when we introduce laws, it has to be introduced by a senator in the form of legislation or a bill, which is when it gets debated on between the Senate and the House where they'll agree on it or disagree. And once they come up with something, this gets passed to the president where he or she will either reject it or sign it, which is when it'll become a law. Now, an executive order isn't really a law, but it gets treated like one the moment that it gets signed into action. But there's a few things that could go wrong with it, so let me explain the 4 new executive orders, what they are, and things you might have missed, and how they're about to affect us. Because true story, I read through all of them myself so that you wouldn't have to, but they were pretty short. So the first one is called the Memorandum on Deferring Payroll Tax Obligations in Light of the Ongoing COVID-19 Disaster. Say that 5 times fast. Here's what it said.
First one is I'm providing a payroll tax holiday to Americans earning less than $100,000 per year. In a few moments, I will sign a directive instructing the Treasury Department to allow employers to defer payment of the employee portion of certain payroll taxes. So it'll be August 1st through the end of 2020. If I'm victorious on November 3rd, I plan to forgive these taxes and make permanent cuts to the payroll tax. I'm going to make them all permanent.
Okay, so the payroll taxes that he's referring to here is the Federal Insurance Contributions Act, or otherwise known as FICA, which is something that we all pay into every time we receive a paycheck from our job. Now, if you make $4,000 every 2 weeks or less, or around $104,000 every year or less, then that is money that you no longer have to worry about, at least temporarily. Under this executive order, that tax, which is 6.2% for Social Security and 1.45% for Medicare, is money that we don't have to pay into at least until September 1st, 2020 until December 31st, 2020. Unfortunately, if you're unemployed, this does not help you in any way, shape, or form because you don't have an income to get taxed on anyway. The president also said that if he gets re-elected, that he would eliminate those taxes completely. Now, somebody who could do a few magic tricks myself, I'd say it's very hard to make those taxes, Social Security and Medicare, go away completely, just because those taxes also pay for both of those programs. Also, it's not clear what deferment means, because it actually means to postpone something until later, and by that definition, it means we have to pay back those taxes. So I did some digging around in hopes that those taxes will be forgiven, like in this written misunderstanding, for example. In Section 6428 of the CARES Act bill called the Stimulus Check a Recovery Rebate for Individuals, it says that the check itself was an advance refund of credit, which made people confused into thinking it was just a tax rebate that was given to us instead of our usual tax refund, which obviously wasn't the case. So with the tax deferment, it doesn't mean that you're forgiven 100%. So if you find yourself working and getting that paycheck that's missing those FICA taxes, by this definition, you still owe them back at the end of the year. Hopefully this is a misunderstanding in written language and they'll be forgiven, but for now, just assume that you'll have to pay them back.
Second, I'm signing an executive order directing the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HHS, and CDC to make sure renters and homeowners can stay in their homes.
Now, the second executive order is called Fighting COVID-19 by Providing Assistance to Renters and Homeowners. Now, this one is pretty vague, and after reading the document myself, I couldn't find that many specifics, but here's what I do know. The eviction freeze, or moratorium as it's called, expired at the end of last month in July. So with this new executive order, the president is extending it and providing financial assistance to those in need. Now, unfortunately, there's nothing in this executive order that I've read, or anybody else read, that specifies exactly what it means to be in need, nor does it specify exactly how much money will be provided to those who are considered in need, nor where that money is going to be coming from. So fortunately, we've got Papa Powell's money printing machine to take care of us, and for everything else in life there is, life takes Visa. No, I'm not actually sponsored by Visa, but that would have been a great plug. But all we do know is that it's going to be in the hands and the discretion of the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, of Health and Human Services, and the CDC. So unfortunately, very vague, and I don't really consider it a true extension until we know more details.
Third action I'm taking today will also provide additional support for Americans who are unemployed, and I'm taking action to provide an additional or an extra $400 per week in expanded benefits. States will be asked to cover 25% of the cost using existing funding.
So this is a mouthful. It's called Authorizing the Other Needs Assistance Program for Major Disaster Declarations Related to Coronavirus Disease 2019. Instead of the $600 weekly unemployment benefit, it's going to lower it down to $400 a week instead, which is exactly in the middle of what the Republicans wanted in the HEALS Act, which was $200, and what the Democrats wanted, which was just to extend the $600 indefinitely. Now, this will last until the week of Sunday, December 6th, or until the relief fund falls to $25 billion, which right now it's currently sitting at $70 billion, whichever of these comes first. The catch is this: out of that $400 that they're promising, $300 of that is going to be federally funded, aka given to us by the government. The other $100 is going to be provided for by your state. Unfortunately, not all states can afford to do this, and some states are already stretched to the limit and their budget can't afford it because they're already asking the government for help. So I would expect the $300 and treat the other $100 as a bonus if you get it. So expect 3, but hope for 4. Now, the challenge with this executive order is that technically speaking, the president doesn't have the power or say over what happens to the federal budget just by himself. So in theory, he could be sued or even challenged by Congress or the Supreme Courts. Now, that would be very unpopular of them to challenge these orders right now, just because nobody wants to be that kid from school that's like, Mr. Blumel, you forgot to give us homework. So we'll see if he's actually challenged and what happens, but technically speaking, this is not a power that is reserved for presidents.
Fourth, I'm signing a directive providing relief to student loan borrowers. Today, I'm extending this policy through the end of the year, and we'll extend it further than that, most likely.
Okay, so this one is for students, and what it means is before, student loans were due on September 30th, and now they're going to be extended until December 31st, and in the meantime, interest rates will drop to 0%, so it might be a good time to consider catching up. But the bad news is this doesn't apply to privately held loans. So if that's you, I would still call and ask to see if they have any assistance programs available, because sometimes they do to compensate, and the worst they could say is no, so I would just call and ask. The bad news is, of course, if you've noticed, none of these executive orders cover the most important topic, which is the stimulus checks. Unfortunately, the president does not have the power nor the authority to make an executive order regarding the stimulus checks. It's basically being held hostage because of 3 primary disagreements between the Republicans and the Democrats. And the first is unemployment benefits, which is what the executive order just addressed. The second one is funding for the states. The third one is liability protections. And the fourth one is how much we should spend on the bill itself. That was actually 4 reasons, just to see if you're still paying attention, if you're still awake. But we all agree on the $1,200 stimulus check. It's as good as confirmed. It's just not signed into law just yet. So logic says, why don't we just pass the law on the thing that we all agree on? But some members of Congress don't want to separate the issues, and they want an all-encompassing sandwich bill that covers everything, which leaves the rest of us sort of waiting. Once negotiations resume, which is today, Hopefully they'll agree on something by either tomorrow or Wednesday, by which point it'll get passed on to the president and he will have 10 days to sign it into law, and more than likely, don't quote me on this, he will either sign it the same day or the following day. Now traditionally, these executive orders go into effect immediately until they are repealed by Congress or are challenged by the Supreme Court, and until then they are basically the law of the land. Also, there's 2 more executive orders that I really want to share with you in case you missed them, because they're pretty spicy. On Thursday, August 6th, President Donald Trump signed into executive order basically banning the #1 form of entertainment for Gen Z, which is TikTok and WeChat. Now, this is in fear because of espionage from the Chinese government, that it could be used as a tool for blackmail because they collect all of our search and browse history, or it could be used as a political propaganda tool. So in turn, the president made sure that if in 45 days, TikTok or WeChat do not get sold to a US corporate entity, that they can no longer do business here in the States. Now, the closest US corporate entity that we have to actually purchasing TikTok is Microsoft, who's in talks with ByteDance, who owns TikTok, to buy the app. Now, the good news is if the purchase goes through, then all is good and we can just continue using the app. The bad news, though, is that Microsoft hasn't been exactly known for making the best acquisitions with the brightest futures. Skype. I don't know what that was. If this purchase does not happen and you get caught using TikTok or WeChat, then President Donald Trump is going to personally visit your house, delete the app from your phone, and break your phone in 2. Now, obviously, that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is the app is just going to get removed from the App Store and you won't be able to use either of the apps. But let's face it, Gen Z is just way too smart for us, and they'll find a way around it with something like a VPN service, which would be the perfect plug to put in this video if I had a sponsor, but I don't. And in the meantime, once you've received your stimulus check and you've paid for your food and you're satiated, you've paid for your family, you've paid for rent, and you've taken care of your priorities first, and you want to get started with responsible investing, then you can do so for free by signing up with Webull. You'll get 1 free stock, and if you fund your account $100, you'll get a second free stock valued up to $1,400, and you can get a 3rd free stock from Robinhood by signing up for free. You can also follow me on Instagram. I post from time to time. Join my free Discord group. We talk about investing, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, everything in between. And now I sound like a salesman, but nobody sponsors my channel, so I gotta sponsor myself. But with that said, enjoy the rest of your week. Stay safe, stay healthy. Love you. I'll see you back here on Monday and Friday. Bye-bye.